This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Searching for signs of life. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast.
We are not leaving until this job is finished.
Governor Greg Abbott still calling it a rescue mission in central Texas after 4th of July flooding killed more than 100 people along the banks of the Guadalupe River.
Hope for finding survivors was always a long shot after the first few hours. Now with each passing hour, that hope becomes more bleak.
Fox's Mike Tobin says 6 days into the search, there are still over 100 missing. Justin Carpenter is senior pastor of the Cross Kingdom Church in hard-hit Kerrville.
Grief is a long process. And I am one minister that will tell you I don't always have the answers. Many times we are stuck in the tension of mystery. And so in this moment, we want to rally together as a community, love on those around us, be the hands and feet of Jesus, meet their needs, and also give them hope. The anchor still holds. He is still the God of hope, even in the midst of tension.
Governor Abbott says the failures will be examined and systems will be enacted to prevent this kind of catastrophe from ever happening again. President Trump will tour the flood damage on Friday. Israel and Hamas close to a deal on a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. Peace talks are ongoing in Doha, Qatar. There's talk that a truce could be struck by the end of the week to wind down this 2-year-old war.
This 60-day ceasefire might be an opportunity for both sides to meet halfway. Hamas would like Israel to withdraw fully from Gaza. Israel has decapitated Hamas leadership, but they haven't quite finished the job.
Former CIA station chief and Mideast scholar Dan Hoffman says as part of the deal, Hamas will return half of the hostages that it is holding, both alive and dead, to the state of Israel. Russia overnight launched its largest drone attack yet on Ukraine. The strike came just hours after President Trump expressed frustration at Vladimir Putin for defying calls to end the war. The White House this week announced it's sending more weapons to Ukraine. L.A. Mayor Karen Bass accuses ICE agents of kidnapping after a raid on a summer camp in the City of Angels this week. The mayor says that raid was meant to intimidate.
These unconstitutional roundups and raids cannot be allowed to continue. They cannot become the new normal.
No arrests were made during that raid in MacArthur Park. Border czar Tom Homan says Mayor Bass's kidnapping comment is not helpful.
The ramped up rhetoric is going to cause a situation where someone loses their life.
Victor Davis Hanson with the Hoover Institution.
Karen Bass goes in the park and tells ICE to get out of her city, and then she and Gavin Newsom blame other people like Donald Trump for the violence that they let spread.
Hansen says that violence manifested itself recently near Dallas when 10 people were charged with ambushing an ICE detention center. One officer was shot in the neck.
With a wink and a nod, these young people who are committing these atrocious crimes are the useful thugs of the Progressive Democratic Project.
The suspects were armed with an AR-15 and dressed in tactical gear. Those defendants have now been charged with attempted murder. The U.S. Justice Department is launching a criminal probe into former FBI Director James Comey and former CIA Director John Brennan. Has to do with their roles in the 2016 Trump-Russia collusion hoax. Legal scholar Jonathan Turley.
The IG reports said that they pushed the Steele dossier, and these were two of the key individuals who did that. So the question is, does any of this trick the wire to perjury?
The Steele dossier was the basis for which the Trump collusion hoax was cultivated. The DOJ probe will center on alleged false statements made by Comey and Brennan to Congress. The U.S. Supreme Court has cleared the way for the president's plans to downsize the federal workforce. Hundreds of thousands of government workers could lose their jobs. The high court decision overrules a lower court ruling that temporarily froze those job cuts. Police are sounding the alarm about young children in hot cars.
You want a break or you got it? Police in Cobb County, Georgia released body cam footage of officers saving 2 young children who were left in a hot car in a shopping mall parking lot for 40 minutes. A passerby called 911.
The windows are cracked, but I don't think that's right.
It was 117 degrees inside that car.
CBS's Michael Wallace says the father's been charged with child cruelty. The U.S. wants to ban the sale of farmland to buyers linked to China. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins says the move will protect the nation's food supply. Recently, a couple of Chinese nationals were arrested on agro-terrorism charges after trying to smuggle a deadly fungus into this country. Survey says the number of us U.S. with side hustles or second jobs is dwindling. Ted Rossman at Bankrate.com.
We found that about a quarter of U.S. adults, 27%, have a side hustle. That's actually the lowest percentage since 2017.
The survey also found that about a third of those who do have side hustles admit they'll always need one just to make ends meet. In case you need it, here's a couple more reasons to put that phone away before you call it a day.
Research published in the journal Brain Medicine found artificial light exposure at night negatively impacts not only our sleep quality, but also the immune system, metabolism, and even our mood. Reducing screen time in the evening and maintaining consistent sleep schedules can help reduce the negative effects.
Michael George reporting this doesn't happen often, and inside the park, walk-off home run, but it happened last night in San Francisco. Giants catcher Patrick Bailey belted a 3-run home run in the bottom of the 9th to give San Francisco a 4-3 win over the Philadelphia Phillies. Here's what it sounded like on the MLB Network.
See that coming.
Nobody saw that coming. Giants manager Bob Melvin afterward.
I thought it was out, but kicked off the wall, and you don't see many in the park home runs.
Especially those that end a ball game. We'll have more with Randy coming up in sports. Also ahead on the Noon Report, IKEA is headed to Syracuse. Pastors react to IRS ruling, and literacy camps to the rescue.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, calling for some unsettled weather the next couple of days. We'll explain in the forecast coming up.
All right, Kevin, we'll see in about 10 minutes. The National Weather Service says an F2 tornado was on the ground for about 10 minutes Monday afternoon in the Ontario County community of Phelps. That twister ripped up trees and left some homeowners without a roof over their head.
We were seeing farm equipment just picked up and thrown. 2 houses completely lost the roofs right off of their house. There's debris thrown all across these fields.
Ontario County Sheriff David Sorencione. First responder Dave DeRoller says natural disasters are becoming more commonplace in New York.
Between the hurricanes, the tornadoes, rainstorms, we just got 3 inches of rain last week in Rochester.
You would maybe see 1 every 5 years or so. Now to have 3 in a year is definitely odd.
The sheriff says that twister left a path of destruction a mile long. New York set a record last year for the number of tornadoes in a single year. 32 twisters touched down in the Empire State in 2024, and that breaks the old record of 25 that was set in 1992. The Buffalo-based Christian relief group 8 Days of Hope is sending a disaster team to Texas to assist in flood recovery efforts. 8 Days of Hope President Steve Tybor.
We've been doing this for 20 years. We've responded to 106 different disasters, and we have never seen anything like this. It's hard for organizations like ours or Samaritan's Purse to run in there and start doing what we do when they're still looking for lost loved ones. And so, we've had to be patient.
Tybor says his team will be assisting in debris removal efforts along the Guadalupe River in the Texas Hill Country. Local pastors are reacting to the recent IRS ruling that says churches can endorse political candidates without losing their tax-exempt status. The change in the 70-year-old policy known as the the Johnson Amendment was made official Monday. Some church leaders call this ruling a breath of fresh air and a victory for the First Amendment, but others fear it's a slippery slope and will lead to polarizing politics behind the pulpit. The Rochester, New York School District is seeking public input amid that looming statewide bell-to-bell cell phone ban takes effect in the fall. District spokeswoman Marisol Ramos Lopez.
A lot of our schools already have an electronic device policy specifically for cell phones. This does expand it to include tablets, smartwatches, and smart glasses, and anything that's considered smart.
The district, which serves 22,000 students in the city of Rochester, held its first public meeting last night on the digital device ban. 13 Wham's Stephen Pappas.
When students across the state return to class this fall, there will be restrictions on cell phones and other internet-enabled personal devices like smartwatches and tablets. The Rochester City School District wants to hear from parents on how the state policy could be handled locally.
Districts statewide must submit their plans for adopting this bell-to-bell cell phone ban by the 1st of August. Republicans do not yet have a candidate to challenge Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro in next year's election. That's because President Trump-backed Congressman Dan Mueser says his name will not be on the ballot. The 9th District Republican representative says he plans to remain in Congress and will not campaign for governor. Mueser's district, by the way, spans all or parts of 12 counties, from the northern tier to the Harrisburg area. President Trump is threatening a federal takeover of New York City if Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani is elected mayor in November. He won the Democratic primary last month. The current mayor, Eric Adams, says the Big Apple cannot afford socialist policy.
Our economy is the strongest it has ever been. We don't need to move in the wrong direction.
Adams is running as mayor again, but as an independent in the fall. The week-old garbage workers strike is finally over with in Philadelphia. Unionized sanitation workers have reached a deal with the city on a new contract. And just in the nick of time, that trash was starting to pile high on the streets of Philadelphia. Popular Swedish furniture chain IKEA will open its first upstate New York location inside the Destiny USA Mega Mall in Syracuse.
IKEA is a company that we've been in contact with for many, many years. And we're very proud to say that this is one of the earliest mall stores that they'll have open in the U.S.
Destiny USA spokesman Stephen Congo.
I do think it will enhance what we have here today. Is it going to bring a different level of customer? Probably not, just more. And that's what we're excited about.
IKEA hopes to open its first store upstate inside that Syracuse mega mall before the end of the year. There's a protest happening today in Silver Creek, New York, over proposed wind turbines in Lake Erie. That protest will happen at the Sunset Bay Beach Club. Chautauqua and Erie counties have already approved legislation opposing the turbines. Congressman Nick Langworthy says wind farms are expensive, unreliable, and harmful to the economy. A familiar summertime sight is back across New York and Pennsylvania. Swarms of mayflies are clustering on walls and flitting about outdoor lighting. Bug expert Christine Mayer says mayflies tend to show up in large numbers in communities around the Great Lakes.
When they get, large enough, they emerge from the water. That's what people see sometimes swarming around lights and, forming clusters that we see at this time of the year.
While they may be a nuisance, large mayfly populations are seen as evidence of a healthy ecosystem. A bookstore in Buffalo is offering free literacy camps this summer to help kids combat what's called brain fog, that condition that tends to set in once school ends.
The literacy camps are designed to bridge the gap between June and September. Kids, statistically, we know that their reading habits fall off. They get back in September, and they're not where they should be. They're losing ground in the reading and writing game.
That's Thomas McDonald. He runs the Dog Ears Bookstore, which will be offering free literacy camps all summer long, designed to show kids that reading and writing can actually be fun. Well, sports is fun. We've got more of that next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Patrick Bailey. Bob, that is the name on people's lips in San Francisco today. Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bailey ended the game last night on a hit you've probably never seen before. The Giants were down 3-1 against the Phillies when Patrick Bailey hit an inside the park walk-off 3-run home run. It's a hit he is never going to forget, and those who saw it will be talking about it long after Bailey retires from the game. 4-3, the final. The Giants walk it off. The Bronx Bombers lived up to their names as Giancarlo, Austin, and Aaron all went deep. That's Stanton, Wells, and Judge. 10-3, the final against Seattle. Cal Raleigh hit his Major League leading 36th home run of the season in the defeat. The New York Mets went into extra innings against the Orioles, and Juan Soto drove in the winning run in the 10th inning. 7-6, the final. The Amazons have now won 5 of 6. The Pirates fell to the Royals 4-3. Nick Lofton, the hitting star, he went 3 for 5, had a home run and 3 ribbies. The last one coming in the bottom of the 9th to give Kansas City the victory. Let's talk tennis. 5th-seeded American Taylor Fritz punched his ticket into the semifinals at Wimbledon with a 4-set victory. A big challenge looms, however. His next opponent will be number 2 seed and defending Wimbledon champ, Carlos Alcaraz. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you very much, Randy Matt. And still to come on the Noon Report, a midweek edition. Summer camp concerns in light of Texas. Kev says unsettled weather for the next couple days, and our own Sarah Harnish has a special report on the Hill Country catastrophe.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. In recent months, at 2 different synods for 2 different dioceses of the Anglican Church of North America, I encountered a significant number of impressive young men, mostly in their 20s. In one case, they humbly served the clergy and leadership throughout the multi-day proceedings. In the other case, a group attended a local parish but then chose to join in and stay for the entirety of an exceptionally long ordination service. Now, I see something similar at my own church, where there's often a row of single young men who are faithful, spiritually hungry, and interested in cultivating a deeper personal faith. And I should note that there is no corresponding row of young women at my church, nor did I see similar numbers of young women at either of the aforementioned synods. Though my stories are anecdotal, there is growing evidence of what has been called a quiet revival of Christian belief among Gen Z men. The New York Times reported last fall that for the first time in American history, men now outnumber women in churches. A trend's especially pronounced among 20-somethings. Last year, a survey by the Public Religion Research Institute found that 39% of Gen Z women identify as religiously unaffiliated, compared with only 31% of men. And among white evangelicals, young men have begun showing significantly more religiosity than women do. And newer data from the UK also shows a surprising reawakening that's happening across the pond, where church attendance overall has long been much lower than in the US. Back in April, the Bible Society reported that church decline in England and Wales has not only stopped, but the church is growing, as Gen Z leads an exciting turnaround in church attendance. It's a turnaround that's happened in a short time. In 2018, only 4% of 18 to 24-year-olds in the UK attended church regularly, but by last year, that number had quadrupled. And among 25 to 34-year-olds, attendance more than tripled, raising the overall rate from 8% to 12% of the population. Though still a low number, it represents a historic reversal of the country's century-long de-churching. Like in the US, young men in the UK are leading the return. Among the 18 to 24 age group in the Bible Society survey, 21% of men attended at least once a month, compared with just 12% of women the same age. Statistician Ryan Burge wrote this on X, quote, "It seems very clear now that men are more likely to be regular church attenders than women, and those gaps are the largest among the youngest adults." He also pointed out that these numbers are not due primarily to immigration, as the white-only sample showed the very same trends. So why are young men returning to church, and why aren't young women joining them? The Times pointed to a shift in cultural and political attitudes among young men that seems to correspond with their search for traditional faith. As young women have skewed increasingly progressive, young men are now much more likely to call themselves politically conservative. The reversal in the historic tendency of the church to be mostly female is proof of just how much our culture has lied to young women. And it won't help the overall decline that we've seen in marriage or the birth dearth much either. And of course, it's more than possible that young men are returning to church for wrong reasons. They still need to hear Christianity taught accurately and in its entirety. So even as we praise God for this so-called quiet revival, we should be asking, how can we fan the flames of true belief in Gen Z? How can we help make disciples rather than just cultural converts? It's clear God's up to something, and we should be eager to play whatever part He has for us in this providential moment that's happening in young hearts. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. And for a version of this commentary that you can print out and share with others, go to colsoncenter.org/radio.
All right, John, thank you very much. Outside we go next, weatherman Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast for this afternoon. Plenty of clouds, limited sun, just a stray shower or thunder shower, though. Highs in the 80s. A couple of showers and thunder showers around tonight and tomorrow. Low tonight 60s, the high tomorrow 80s. And then on Friday, some sunshine. Still the chance of a shower or thunder shower across the southern tier of New York into central and eastern Pennsylvania with high temperatures in the 80s and a good deal of sunshine to start the weekend on Saturday.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening Wednesday, the 9th day of July. The search for survivors continues in the flood-wrecked Texas Hill Country north of San Antonio. Family members of the missing are hoping against hope to find their loved ones.
We're all children of God, and this is what I would want somebody to do for me. One of the shocking memories I'll always have is just how high some of the debris got.
I know that there's folks out there that are hurting, so I want to be able to help them and hopefully give some closure.
Hundreds of first responders and volunteers are scouring the banks of the Guadalupe River, searching for signs of life amid the carnage. Helping out, Dennis Price with the group Heroes for Humanity.
There's a lot of debris and chunks of houses and RVs all piled on top of each other about 20 feet high, and under that debris is about 5 feet of muck. And in that 5 feet, I mean, there's people in there.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott was asked, who's to blame for the loss of life?
Who's to blame? Know this. That's the word choice of losers. Let me explain one thing about Texas. Every square inch of our state cares about football. The losing teams are the ones that try to point out who's to blame. The way winners talk is not to point fingers.
In other words, says the governor, nobody's to blame. Meantime, Christian camps across Texas are chiming in on the tragedy.
We feel the weight of taking parents' most precious thing for a week.
That's John McDonald. He's executive director of a camp in New Braunfels, Texas, not far from Camp Mystic in Kerrville, where dozens of young girls perished in the 4th of July flood.
Can we prevent this, or what can be done to prevent this next time? And these are really hard questions. So these are the things that continue to keep us up at night.
McDonald says he understands parents' hesitancy at sending their children away for a week of summer camp, especially given what happened last week in the Texas Hill Country. You're listening to the Noon Report for a Wednesday on Family Life.
This is a special Family Life news feature on the devastation in Texas. 100 billion gallons of rain fell July 4th in Kerrville, causing the Guadalupe River to rise dozens of feet in an hour. The county received more rain in one night than it does in a year. More than 100 people are dead and hundreds rescued.
The pain, the shock of what has transpired these last few days has broken the heart of our state.
The number of missing is still unknown.
We've searched 26 river miles, 444 rescues.
You hear helicopters flying by. There are boats and drones.
There's cars and trees.
Some places there is nothing left. You can't even tell what was there.
Holding out, wondering if the one I love is still out there.
Please pray for those who mourn, for those who wait, and for
are those who help.
I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and today we take a tour of miracles with a trio of Texans who are there. Diana McCracken survived the wall of water heading directly for her. Samantha Johnson, her daughter, and grief and trauma counselor Nancy Sheridan. We begin at 3:30 in the morning, Independence Day. It's pitch black in the RV where Diana is sleeping beside the Guadalupe River. She doesn't know a flood is minutes away.
We got a bang on our RV, and a man said, "The river is here." And we looked out. The river was over 30 feet high, just raging towards us. And he said, "You have got to get out of here now." We hopped in the truck and we went down the street and we sat on a parking lot across, completely in shock at what was going on. Like literally the river came up like it was an ocean. But we just realized that God saved us.
How long did you have when you got that knock on the door, got your things and got on that truck and got out of there?
3 minutes.
3 minutes?
3 minutes. It was so fast. And the man is like, "You've got to get out now." And we did. And had we not listened, we would have been swept away. We've lost the house. We've lost the RV. We've lost the car. We lost the motorcycle. And it doesn't mean anything because these people lost their lives. It's all ripped apart and devastated. I have so many pictures I could send you of the beauty. We were just in the river with our grandchildren, walking and fishing and playing at the playground and singing and laughing. And then it looks like a war zone. Although hundreds of people's lives are being impacted from losing everything, there's so much good that's going on in our community. There's so many people so willing to do everything and anything to search for people that are missing.
Do you think the National Weather Service did a good job alerting you guys?
No. My daughter was communicating with us at 3:30 in the morning, and she said, "Mom, I'm really concerned. There's notices that the river is rising," but it stopped giving notices, and apparently it said that the river stopped at 29 feet because they didn't have any more alarms. I guess they never anticipated that it would go up higher than 29 feet, but it stopped. So we had the feeling that we were safe.
I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and if you're just joining us, we're going on a tour of miracles coming out of the flooding in Kerr County, Texas. Samantha Johnson is Diana's daughter. Samantha, how have you seen God show up in the past few days?
The way that our community has shown up for each other is beautiful. People from all over are coming to help, and that's a miracle in itself. We're really praying for miracles. We're praying that people are found. I mean, I stood in the riverbed. You saw the power. I saw metal beams bent. And you just, at this point, it's like praying for a miracle. And if people can find people in trees or anywhere, like, that's God.
And they are. There was the one girl that was up in the tree for quite a while and got rescued.
Yeah, she traveled 12 miles down the river. And that is a miracle in itself because the power of that river, like she was dodging trucks, she was dodging refrigerators, she was dodging pieces of houses. Like the fact that anyone made it out is a miracle in itself.
All I can picture in my head is the amount of angels that must have been around that girl, Diana, that man that knocked at your door that you'd never seen before to come and get you out.
I agree. Yeah, there's many stories like that.
We're going to shift gears for the last part here because the weight of what has happened in Kerrville is so heavy to process. Nancy Sheridan is a Christian grief and trauma counselor based in San Antonio. That's about an hour outside of Kerrville. Nancy, when you hear Diana and Samantha's stories, how do you see God show up?
A gentleman came out of nowhere to knock on the door, and they heeded his emergency evacuation. And the rental property, the father who was woken up repeatedly at 3 a.m. to rescue his family just in time. These are the miracle stories that are going to keep coming out as we hear and listen to the people's harrowing stories of rescue and survival. But I'm thankful that throughout, as we're praying for them, for the healing and for the restoration of this community, that people are seeking God and they're sharing their miracles with us.
There was this pastor in Texas with the First Baptist Church of Dallas named Robert Jeffress. And he had a message for those who survived and for those who are watching this story play out on national TV. And I wanted to play the bite for you and just have you respond to it, because I think this is the place that we have to keep our heads when we hear stories like this.
Faith means something when it's exercised in the darkness. And right now there are hundreds of families here in Central Texas that are exercising faith in the darkness. They don't understand why, but they believe in a God who will one day, not immediately, but eventually he will make all things right.
What is faith in the darkness?
Basically, we get to walk through faith by faith, moment by moment, believing and trusting God in the middle of the storm, in the middle of a disaster, in the middle of a season of great loss and grief. But we get to see in the future what God had planned all along. We don't get to see it in the moment. So this pastor is speaking truth, and it's truth that brings hope.
Learn how you can make a difference in Texas at familylife.org/relief.
All right, thank you very much for that report, Sarah. And again, for a complete list of Christian groups on the ground right now in Texas, go to familylife.org/relief. This is the Noon Report on Family Life.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Well, check of the history book shows that it was quite the heat wave underway on this date in 1936. Some of the highest temperatures ever recorded in our region occurred. Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, 103. Syracuse, 102. Ithaca, 103. Now, our story today is not of heat, however, but enough humidity with a nearby front to increase the chances for some showers and rumbles over the next 36 hours. For this afternoon, plenty of clouds, limited sun, just a stray shower or thunder shower, though, highs in the 80s. A couple of showers and thunder showers around tonight and tomorrow. Low tonight, 60s, the high tomorrow, 80s. And then on Friday, some sunshine, still the chance of a shower or thunder shower across the southern tier of New York into central and eastern Pennsylvania with high temperatures in the 80s and another deal of sunshine to start the weekend on Saturday.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. And finally at noon today, a very old dessert, 78 years old, is about to be repurposed.
Master bakers and confectioners at a Reading factory have been engaged on a very special order, a wedding cake for Princess Elizabeth.
An auction house in England says royal fan Jerry Layton has purchased the last slice of that 1947 cake for more than $3,600. He says he'll flambe it in rum to kill off the bacteria and eat it for his 65th birthday.
All right, sounds like a plan. Thank you very much, Deborah Rodriguez, with that report. And that's our world, the world we live in. Wednesday, the 9th of July. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.